I did not notice the mug until I went to pour the coffee. Her mug was still hanging on the hook, the one with the chip on the rim that she said gave it personality. 11 months, and I never threw it away. The refrigerator still had the note. I left it there, not because I was sentimental, but like a kind of mental pest control. It read, "I need to find myself. Do not wait." Not a goodbye, not a plan, just that. Like a teenager off to backpack through Europe, not like a 60-year-old woman walking out after 3 decades of marriage. At the start, I did the thing a fool does. I cooked breakfast for 2. I bought the yogurt she liked. I folded the extra pillow back into place. I checked the mailbox like maybe there would be a letter, or a joke, or a code that I could work out. After 6 weeks, the only thing I was working out was the silence. It was a hard, crusted-over kind of silence that sits on your chest, even when you sleep. So I quit setting 2 places at the table. I quit playing the Sunday morning playlist she made. The coffee got stronger. The meals got simpler. The house got quieter than a confessional. And I became something else. Not bitter. Not broken. Just still. The kind of still that makes people think twice before they ask if you are all right. Every morning I stepped into the yard and watered the roses she never really liked. Too many thorns, she used to say. She wanted azaleas. I kept the roses. They would draw a little blood if you got too close, but they stayed put. It was a routine, not a life, until Megan started waving. At first I figured she was only being polite. She had moved in across the street a few months earlier. Mid-30s, maybe younger. Always in hospital scrubs. Always with a tired smile and a coffee cup of her own. She would wave, and I would nod back like a man who forgot how to nod like a normal person. She kept at it every morning, like clockwork. One day I raised my hand first. That same day she crossed the road and asked about the roses. I cut one for her to take home. She pricked her thumb on the stem and laughed. "You kept the thorns," she said. "Good." Then she turned and walked back to her place, humming something low and familiar. It was the first voice I had heard near my porch in months. She did not ask about Linda, which, funny enough, made me want to talk about Linda, or at least talk at all. The next week I saw Megan coming home from a shift, and I said, "Do you ever sit on porches?" She smiled, shifted the bag on her shoulder, and said, "Only if the coffee is decent." That is how it started. 2 chairs, 1 coffee pot, quiet between 2 people who were not trying to fix each other, just living through the noise the world already made. If you are still listening, you are probably one of the quiet ones, too. The kind who sit through storms and do not shout about it. Do me a favor. Please follow this show. More than 90% of people who listen do not subscribe, and it matters to the team that puts these stories together. Your support keeps us going, and it helps us tell it straight. Anyway, Megan and I did not jump into the heavy talk. Not at first. She told me about her father, how he died last year. She said grief does not hit like a truck. It waits behind a door and jumps you when you are looking for your keys. I told her that is exactly how it felt. She started bringing coffee instead of taking flowers. Sometimes she baked and left it in a little foil pan with a sticky note that said, "Eat this before it judges you." One time she forgot a scarf on the porch. I hung it on the back of the chair. She did not take it back. That second chair stopped being just a seat. It got claimed by a woman who did not ask if I was okay, who did not poke at me with worried eyes or with phrases from a therapist's handbook. She just sat. By doing that, she gave me permission to sit, too. One morning she showed up earlier than usual. No coffee, no foil pan, just her. She stood on the steps and asked, "Do you ever get tired of waiting for things that do not come back?" I did not answer right away. I looked at the note on the refrigerator through the kitchen window. "Yes," I said. "I think I finally am." Megan did not rush to fill the quiet. That was the first thing I noticed about her. Most people think silence is something broken, like a faucet that needs a wrench. They try to fix it with words. Not her. She would sit, sip her coffee, and watch the light move through the trees like it was a show worth watching. It made me feel not watched, not judged, just seen. Like a man whose story did not need translating. It started with Sundays. She would knock once, never twice. Always left room for a no. I never used it. She would bring banana bread or leftover pasta from her sister's place, and we would sit on the porch while the world spun without us. One Sunday turned into Wednesday, then Friday. No schedule, just a rhythm. Somewhere along the way, she stopped knocking. I learned about her in pieces. Her father had been a bricklayer. Tough hands. Kind eyes. Smoked too much. When he got sick, she moved back to town to care for him. She worked nights so she could be there during the day. He died on a Tuesday. She still does not like Tuesdays. Her mother had passed when she was little, and she was an only child. I never really knew how to be a daughter, she said once. But I was very good at being a nurse. She smiled after that, a half smile that looked both proud and tired. I did not share much about Linda. I said that she left, that it was sudden, and that she left a note. Megan did not push for more. Sometimes I watched her hands. They were always moving, stirring her coffee, folding a napkin, smoothing out invisible creases on her jeans. I got used to that movement. It felt steady, like a heartbeat. You forget the sound of your own hearing until all the noise stops. One night, she brought real dinner. Pork chops, roasted potatoes, homemade applesauce. I joked that she was trying to take me out by kindness. She rolled her eyes. "This is what normal people do, Jack," she said. "They eat, they talk, they laugh." I looked at the full plate and asked, "You think this is normal?" She paused and said, "No, but I think it could be." After we ate, we stayed on the porch longer than usual. I poured another glass of iced tea. She pulled her knees up in the chair. The air turned chilly, and I offered her my old flannel shirt. She lifted it to her face, breathed it in, and then slid it on. I did not know what to make of that small move. Around 10 o'clock she stood, stretched, and glanced toward her house. The windows were dark. In a soft voice, like she was saying a private truth out loud, she said, "I do not want to go back tonight." I did not give a speech. I just held the front door open. When she stepped through, I whispered, "You are welcome here if you ever need peace." She was already halfway down the hall when she said, "I do." She stayed that night, and then the next. There was no ceremony to it. No big declarations. No awkward rules to agree on. We shared the rooms like two people who both knew what it felt like to lose something, and who were quietly choosing not to lose again. The second porch chair was hers in everything but name. She shifted the cushion to fit her back. She left her scarf over the rail. She started bringing her own mugs, bright ones with little patterns. She planted lavender in the pot Linda used to keep empty for decoration. I began to notice that I was not waking up angry anymore. I was not hollow. I was present. The house did not feel haunted. It felt lived in. One morning I was pouring coffee and realized I had made 2 cups without thinking. I looked through the window. She was already on the porch, curled up, reading a book I did not remember buying. I opened the screen door and handed her a mug. She smiled. "Thanks, roommate." I laughed. "I am pretty sure you have outstayed your trial period." She leaned back, eyes closed, sunlight on her face. "Then maybe it is time for a lease," she said. Just like that, the house was not waiting anymore. It was becoming something new, something real. It is strange how fast silence becomes a habit. Then somehow it turns into comfort. You stop noticing the lack of noise, and you start paying attention to the rhythm under it. The creak of the floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator, the way she sighs right before sleep. Megan fit the rooms like she had been here all along. There was no announcement and no move-in day. A second toothbrush appeared next to mine. Her jacket hung on the hook beside the old one Linda left behind, the old one I had quietly pushed to the back of the closet. The seasons kept turning like they always do, but this time I noticed the leaves along the walkway. They flared gold and amber, then fell like confetti. Every Saturday, Megan swept them into neat piles. She said it was meditative. I told her it was obsessive. She grinned and threatened to start a compost bin. I almost believed her. By November, the neighbors were waving longer and smiling wider. One of them called across the street, "Glad to see the lights on again, Jack." I nodded and looked over at Megan through the kitchen window. She was barefoot, laughing at something on her phone, wearing that same old flannel of mine like it was armor. No one asked where Linda went. People are funny that way. Most folks do not want the real answer. They want just enough to nod and change the subject. A few friends came by for coffee. One of them, Tom, leaned in and said, "She is good for you. You do not look like you are waiting for the bus to hit you anymore." I told him that was a rough measure for happiness. But he was right. There were no labels. She was not my girlfriend, not my partner, not anything we could put in a box. She was just Megan. She did add little names around the house. Post-it notes on jars. Cheeky lines on mugs. She called the armchair by the fireplace the throne and claimed it whenever she read. I let her. I even bought a footrest to match. One quiet evening, we were stretched out on the couch. I had my head back, eyes closed, drifting with the low sound of some documentary neither of us cared about. Her fingers found my hand. I squeezed once, not really thinking. Then she guided my hand, slow and sure, until it rested low across her stomach. I opened my eyes. She was watching me. Careful, guarded, not afraid. I found out yesterday, she said. The world slowed down. I did not speak. I kept my hand there. My thumb moved a little. Maybe it was a reflex. Maybe I was trying to hear something that was not there yet. Are you all right? She asked. I opened my mouth, closed it. Then I laughed. Not a big laugh. Not a television laugh. A release. A sound I had not made in over a year. Something between disbelief and clarity. I do not know what I am supposed to say. I finally managed. Then do not say anything, she whispered. Just be here. And I was. The next morning I made 3 cups of coffee. One for me, one for her. One that sat and cooled on the table, untouched like a promise. I started noticing new things. The way she winced when she brushed her teeth. How she stopped eating onions. How she cried during a dog food commercial and tried to blame it on hormones. I did not tease her much. She would say things like, "When the baby comes," and I would just nod. Not because I was unsure, but because I was building the same sentence in my head, brick by brick. The next week I updated my will. No big scene, no drama. I called my lawyer, changed the documents, rerouted the accounts, and made quiet decisions that felt obvious now. He asked if I was sure. I said, I am not sure of anything, but I am not stuck anymore. We did not tell anyone right away. It was not a secret. It was protection. It felt like we were cupping a small flame with our hands while a hard wind blew outside. The world could wait. The house did not. The house woke up. I caught myself humming while I swept the floor. I opened the blinds every morning. I repainted the porch. We bought a rocking chair for no reason other than Megan said it felt right. One afternoon, I watched her hang tiny socks on a clothesline in the laundry room. Early nesting, I guessed. A ripple moved through me, deep and old, like I finally set down a weight I had been carrying in my chest for years. Linda's note was still on the refrigerator. I had not touched it, but I had not read it in months. I stopped seeing it, the way you stop seeing a crack in the wall once you hang a picture. And now that wall was covered with new photos and scraps. A blurry instant photo of Megan holding a cupcake with pink frosting. A sonogram pinned next to a grocery list. A sticky note that said, "Remember life, then laundry." The house was not waiting anymore. Neither was I. It happened on a Wednesday, late in the afternoon. The sky had that particular gray that looks like it is about to confess something, but never does. Megan was napping upstairs, curled under a quilt her grandmother had sewn long ago. Heavy, hand-stitched, warm as time. I was downstairs with a box of old garden tools, finally deciding what to fix and what to throw out. My phone buzzed on the oak counter. No special ringtone. One short vibration. But in that quiet room it sounded like a gunshot. Linda. I had not seen that name on my screen since spring. Before Megan. Before the warmth. Before I remembered what it felt like to breathe without a knot in my throat. The message sat there. Plain, familiar in the worst way. I have had my fun. I am ready to be your wife again. Can we talk? It was not really a question. It felt like a summons. A magician snapping her fingers to bring the rabbit back. I did not answer. I did not touch the phone. I stared until the screen dimmed to black. For a moment the old anger tried to rise, like something dead clawing up from the dirt. I did not let it. Not because I was noble. Because I was finished. Finished being the net she could fall into when her wires snapped. I powered the phone down, slid it into the drawer under the sink, and went outside. The wind was sharp, but not mean. The fence still had a few loose boards from the last storm. I grabbed the hammer and nails and got to work. I did not tell Megan. I did not have to. Some ghosts do not deserve to wake other people. An hour later she came down the stairs, hair mussed from sleep, and wrapped her arms around me from behind while I was realigning the hinges on the gate. "This thing has been squeaky for weeks," she said into my shoulder. I kissed her forehead. "Yes, but now it squeaks in 2 different keys." She laughed. That low laugh I like. The kind that does not ask for attention. It returns it quietly. That was all. No theatrics. No hiding. Just 2 people taking care of a small world while the past howled somewhere beyond the fence. That night, after she went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I checked the county records office online. I looked up the civil registry. There it was. Our marriage had never been dissolved. Linda and I were still legally tied. A technical truth, but it itched like a rash I had only now noticed. I left myself a note to call the lawyer in the morning. Not to get even. To protect what we were building. Not for revenge. For closure. This house, this life with Megan, deserved real boundaries, not the loose ends Linda liked to tug when she was bored. I checked the locks on the front and back doors. Not because I thought she would come by, because I knew I did not want her on the porch, or in the kitchen, or anywhere near this calm. The idea of her standing at the threshold made my skin crawl. Not with fear, with the sense of disruption. This place had peace, softness, lavender-scented laundry, honey in the tea instead of sugar. Linda used to say sugar was for people who could not handle bitterness. Megan never made a speech. She just passed me the honey with a small wink. The phone stayed off. I did not need to block her. I did not need to fire back. She would stew in the quiet. She always struggled more with silence than I did. I went upstairs. Megan shifted as I got into bed. Eyes closed, she reached out and found my arm. That was enough. I fell asleep without a single thought about what Linda had written. She had said, "I have had my fun." As if it had been a vacation. As if the collapse of a marriage was just an intermission in a play she planned to resume. I was not waiting backstage anymore. I was in a different theater entirely. This show did not have room for an encore. I had the pruning shears in my hand, mid-cut, when tires pressed into the gravel. Not fast, not slow. That same casual rhythm she always carried, like the world would hold its breath until she felt like looking at it. I wiped my palms on my jeans and leaned left to peer through the hedge along the walk. A car door creaked. Linda. She stepped out like it was still 1996. Same shoulders set, chin a little high, eyes sweeping the scene like she already owned it. No suitcase, no gift bag, just a purse on her shoulder and a look that said, "I am here now. Let us pretend nothing happened." Jeans, flats, a soft gray sweater, hair done just enough to seem effortless. That was always her trick. Effortless that took effort. I could hear the script in her head. I will knock once. I will smile. Maybe I will look a little misty, but not too much. He will fold. He always folded. She came up the path. I did not move. Megan was inside. The oven timer was counting down. She was baking. Apple pie, I thought. She had said she was craving cinnamon and sugar. She hummed when she baked. It was not a tune I knew, just a few low notes under her breath, like the kitchen joined in. Linda reached the porch. I stood in the garden, not hiding, not stuck, just steady. The door opened. Megan stood there with her hair pulled up, an apron on, a dust of flour across her collarbone. She looked like a picture of peace I had forgotten could be real. Linda blinked. Megan smiled. "Hi there. Can I help you?" Silence got heavy in the doorway. Linda's eyes slipped past Megan, scanning the hall and the walls. She found the photos first. One above the entry, me and Megan grinning on the porch steps, each with a coffee cup. Another by the console table, Megan holding a tiny onesie, cheeks flushed, me kissing the top of her head. Then Linda's eyes dropped. Megan's belly showed now. 5 months along. Not hidden. Not layered under big sweaters. Just there. Life, without apology. Linda's face shifted in little cracks. Not panic. Not shock. Something worse. Disbelief. Her pride starting to splinter. The face of someone who just realized she was not irreplaceable. "Is this the Johnson place?" Linda asked. Her voice skipped once, like a stone over water. Megan did not lose her smile. "It is. I was looking for Jack." Megan tilted her head, calm and certain. "He saw your message. He did not think it needed a reply." Linda swayed a little. Her eyes kept moving, like she could blink fast enough to change the scene. She looked at the lavender in the pot by the steps, at the tiny baby shoes on the rack inside, at the soft mess of a house that was lived in, not paused for her return. "Can you tell him I stopped by?" she asked, voice thin now. The act was coming apart. Megan nodded once. "He already knew you would. That was when I stepped out from the hedge. Not as a challenge, just to be seen." I walked toward the porch with a calm I did not know I owned. Gloves in one hand, thorn scratches and dust on my fingers, sweat on my brow, the smell of earth and old memory on my shirt. Linda turned. Our eyes met. I watched it leave her face, the last spark of hope. It was not because I was cruel. It was because I was clean. I was not bitter. I was not waiting. I was not hers. I was done. Her mouth opened, ready to shape another line, but Megan shifted a small step forward. Not to shield me, just to stand with me. Present. Here. Linda lowered her gaze. She gave a small nod, like she was bowing to a truth too loud to argue with. She went back down the steps, slower than she came. The gravel under her flats sounded different now. Uneven. Unsure. I did not watch the car pull away. I went into the house, our house, and closed the door behind me. Linda did not leave right away. That was the strange part. From the kitchen window, half behind the curtain, I could see her standing on the gravel like someone trying to understand a dream. She glanced around as if the world might slide back into the lines she preferred. As if I might burst out of the door with a grand speech and easy forgiveness she could soak in like warm bath water. Nothing moved but the wind. Megan had already closed the door. Not a slam, not a lock clicking, just the quiet seal between two worlds. Inside, the oven dinged. Cinnamon filled the kitchen the way memory should, warm and right. I turned from the window and set the pie dish on the counter. Megan rinsed flour from her hands, humming that same tune, easy in content, like nothing had happened. Maybe nothing had. At least not in here. Outside, I could feel the panic tighten behind the glass. You can tell when pride is drowning. The flailing is different. I said nothing. I placed the pie on a trivet. Megan dried her hands, looked at me for a beat, and said, "She is still out there." I nodded. "She will leave." "Are you sure?" "She has no place to stay here anymore," I said, and even less to say. Megan leaned against the counter, eyes soft. Not smug, not triumphant. Steady. "She was looking for a different house," she said quietly. "The one you lived in before." I nodded again. "That house burned down 11 months ago. No forwarding address." Outside, Linda finally moved. I heard the soft click of her car door opening, a long pause, and then the door slammed harder than it needed to. The tires spun on the gravel for a second, more for effect than speed, and then settled into a slow roll down the road. Megan did not look out the window. She did not need to. "Do you want pie now or after lunch?" she asked. "Let us eat it now. Life is short." She laughed. "Are you sure you are not going to need whiskey after that?" "No. Pie is good." We sat at the table. 2 slices. 2 forks. No ghosts. Later that afternoon, while I was folding laundry, I found the old flannel shirt I had not worn since spring, the one Linda used to complain about because it smelled like the shed. I put it on anyway. Megan looked up from the couch and smiled. "That one makes you look like you know how to chop wood." "I do know how to chop wood." "Do you?" she asked, skeptical. "Once, back in 1989, the axe handle broke, and I decided the universe was telling me to retire early." She grinned and tossed a balled-up pair of socks at me. I will believe it when I see it. We did not talk about Linda again that day, but I kept flashing on the moment her voice cracked. When she asked, "Is this the Johnson place?" Like she was trying to remember an old password and hoped it still worked. She had walked into a story she thought was on pause. But the plot had changed. The cast had changed. The genre had changed. And the worst part for her was that it was better now. She looked into that house and saw the truth, framed on the walls. 2 people in love. A bassinet waiting. A future. There was no space for her. That was when it hit me. The panic was not because she lost something. It was because she realized she had already been replaced in every way that mattered. No yelling. No showdown. No bitter speech. Just the quiet shock of being too late. The door was not slammed in her face. It simply stopped opening. Sometimes that is louder than any lock could ever be. The message came just after midnight, a faint glow on the nightstand. That hour when regret starts to itch, when people like Linda remember they are not immortal and that bridges do not rebuild themselves. I did not hear it right away. Megan was asleep with her hand on my chest. Her breathing lifted and fell in a steady rhythm that made everything feel slower and safer. The room was calm. Warm blankets. The distant hum of the radiator. A paperback splayed open on her nightstand like it had fainted mid-sentence. I was not dreaming. I was floating somewhere in between. Then the vibration, small and annoying. I blinked at the screen. Please. I was lost. I did not know what I was doing. No punctuation on the second sentence, like she typed fast or thought that stripping it down would make it sound raw and sincere. I sat up slowly, careful not to wake Megan, and read it again. I was lost. I did not know what I was doing. It is the kind of line you send when you want to rewrite your own history. Soft edits. Like betrayal is a typo. Like leaving without a word was a clerical mistake in the heart. My thumb hovered over the keyboard longer than I like to admit. Once, a message like that would have undone me. It would have had me hunting for reasons to forgive her. It would have kept me awake all night, replaying every moment, wondering what I did wrong. Not anymore. Not here. Not now. I typed slowly. You knew what you were doing. You just did not think I would survive it. I sent it. No period. Just the words. I did not wait for the typing bubble. I did not care if she read it. I set the phone face down and stared at the ceiling for a while. Then I picked it up again, opened my contacts, found her name, and deleted it. Not blocked. Not hidden. Just gone. Like tossing out an expired medicine. It may have helped once, but now it only poisons. When I lay back down, Megan shifted. She turned toward me in her sleep, rested her head on my shoulder, and slid her hands to my stomach like she was anchoring herself without waking up. It was enough. In the morning, I called my attorney. Another update? He asked, still groggy. Yes, I said. The final one, I think. We set the appointment for the afternoon. Megan offered to come with me. I did not ask. She volunteered. That mattered. We sat together in the office, the late autumn sun cutting through the blinds in thin stripes. She did not say much. She held my hand while I signed the new paperwork. She was now the sole medical proxy, the executor, the beneficiary. Everything that counted. Any backup next of kin? The lawyer asked, tapping the line. I shook my head. If she is gone, I am gone too. He nodded and clicked his pen shut. Megan leaned in, kissed my cheek, and whispered, You did not have to. I smiled. I did not. I wanted to. It is not about money or property or power. It is about clarity. It is a hard line between the man I was and the man I chose to be. The man who waited and the man who builds. Linda's midnight note did not deserve more than that one sentence. Because that is all she ever gave me. Lines. Promises in invisible ink. Apologies that bled into excuses the second you held them up to the light. This time I did not hold anything up. I let it fall. Quiet. Final. Later that night, Megan and I sat on the porch. The air had a bite to it. She tucked her feet under herself and handed me a blanket. What did the lawyer say? She asked. All done. She lifted one eyebrow. Really? I nodded. All done. She took a sip of tea and stared into the dark the way she does when she is turning some idea over in her mind. At last she said, It feels like something ended today. I did not correct her. Something did. The backyard smelled like oak smoke and rosemary. Megan's sister had dropped off her famous potato salad, the kind loaded with bacon and little family secrets. Our neighbor Tom was at the grill like it was a field exercise. There was music, but not loud. Old blues drifting from a small Bluetooth speaker tucked behind the garden gnome. Megan had woven tiny fairy lights into the shrubs. They blinked like quiet applause. It was not a party. Not really. It felt like a thank you note written as a gathering. A gentle celebration of nothing in particular and maybe everything. New starts. Full plates. Cold lemonade. The simple fact that nobody at the table had to fake a smile. Megan's pregnancy showed now. No mistaking it. She wore a light cotton dress and moved a little slower. Her hand rested on her belly, like she was always mid-conversation with the life inside her. People fussed. She let them with a mock sigh. I am pregnant, not dying, she would say, and then allow someone else to carry the bowl. At one point her sister pulled me aside. You look like someone who finally figured it out, she said. I smirked. Or finally stopped trying to. Same thing, she answered, and went back to her wine. The sun slid low. Shadows stretched across the grass. We were passing slices of Megan's lemon pie when it happened. That sound. Tires on gravel. Slowing. The talk did not stop, but something shifted. A few eyes cut toward the driveway, and then away again. Linda's car. She looked unchanged behind the windshield. Posture straight. Sunglasses on, even though the light had mostly gone. The engine idled. The headlights dipped. She did not get out. Megan saw it too. Her hand found mine under the table. She did not squeeze. She just touched. Steady. I watched Linda sit there. Maybe a minute. Maybe 5. Time always bent when she was near, like she dragged in her own weather. She waited as if the movie would pause for her reentry. We did not pause. Tom cracked a joke about someone overcooking the corn. Megan laughed and told him to eat it anyway. I handed her sister a plate with pie. She took it without a word and gave me a glance that said she knew exactly who sat in that car. She did not ask. Linda did not honk. Did not wave. She watched. Maybe she thought someone would walk over. Maybe she thought Megan would send me out like an envoy with a folding chair and an olive branch. We did not move. We stayed in our seats. We stayed in our life. Megan lifted her glass of lemonade. I tapped mine to hers without breaking eye contact with the woman in the car. It was not hostile. It was not smug. It was a simple fact. You are not in this story anymore. Linda turned the key. The headlights flared. She backed out slow and careful and rolled away like a driver who took a wrong turn into a street that no longer knew her name. No one asked who she was. No one spoke her name. The silence was not passive. It was sharp. It drew a clean line through everything. She once lived in my house. Now she did not even have a chair at my table. Megan leaned a little closer. "Do you want to tell them?" she whispered, nodding at our guests. "Tell them what?" "That it was her." I looked at the table. Friends laughing. Plates passing. The baby bassinet we had just assembled resting in the corner under a blanket. The string lights blinking like patient stars. "No," I said. "Let her be a ghost." "Good call," Megan said, and took another bite of pie. The night moved forward. Talk deepened. Laughter softened. The air cooled. And Linda slipped into the dusk like an actor who missed her cue and wandered off stage. Unaware the audience had already settled into Act 2. The envelope arrived without a return address. I knew the handwriting before I touched it. Tight cursive, slanting right. The neat script that used to scold me on grocery lists and anniversary cards. Linda always wrote like she worried the ink would run off if she did not pin it down. It had been exactly 1 week since she sat at the end of the drive like a stranger peeking at her old life through a window. I thought that might be her ending. A quiet retreat into whatever she had tried to build after she left. But Linda was never good with quiet. If silence did not serve her, she broke it. The envelope lived on the counter most of the day. Megan did not ask. She glanced once and went back to folding tiny clothes, humming to herself. I poured coffee. I mowed the lawn. I fixed the loose hinge on the shed. And that envelope pulsed at the edge of my attention like a dull headache you try to ignore. When the sun began to sink, I sat at the table and opened it. 3 pages. Handwritten. No greeting. No date. Just apologies dressed up like poetry. Lines such as, "I never meant to hurt you, and I was searching for something I could not name." She confessed to fear. Fear of aging, of fading, of feeling invisible beside a man who did not need attention to feel whole. She wrote that she missed my laugh, the way I made coffee in quiet, the sound of my steps on the porch. She said that seeing Megan hit her like a mirror she did not recognize. She called it shocking, heartbreaking, and inevitable. Then came the last line, centered on the page like a wish no one was supposed to say out loud. "Is there any space for me anywhere?" I read it once. No second pass. No analysis. No digging for emotional fossils. I stood, walked outside, and lit the fire pit. The fire pit was Megan's idea. We dug the spot together one afternoon after she said, "I want to roast marshmallows before my ankles disappear." I laid the circle. She gathered the stones. We christened it with cheap chocolate and blackened marshmallows that stuck to our fingers like tree sap. That was where I went. Megan followed me out, barefoot, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She did not ask what I was holding. She did not have to. She stood beside me while I struck a match. The paper curled slow, the edges glowing orange before folding into a black lace. Her words twisted up into smoke and slid into the dark. I said nothing, but my arm went around Megan's waist. Natural. Final. The last corner folded in on itself and vanished into ash. Megan rested her head against my shoulder and watched the embers. We did not look away. There was no applause. No music. Only the sound of something ending cleanly. Linda wanted to know if there was any space left for her. In that moment, surrounded by warmth, by quiet, by the steady pulse of a life moving forward, the answer was not anger. It was not cruelty. It was simply no. The house sounds different now. Not only because of the baby. Although she has claimed the air with her little grunts, hiccups, and those sudden shrieks that make the dog whimper and the neighbors chuckle. It is something else. A frequency you do not notice until you have lived without it. Life. Real, unscripted life. The kind that does not ask permission and does not apologize for the mess it brings. Our daughter has Megan's eyes, that deep hazel that changes with the light. She also has my eyebrows, which Megan says is both a blessing and a curse. She will look perpetually skeptical. Megan laughs, as if that is exactly what we will need in this world. The living room is a minefield of plush toys and bottles. Burp cloths hang over chair backs like surrender flags. A half-built rocking horse sits in the corner. I keep swearing I will finish it. Above the mantel hangs the photo. It is not professional. Megan's sister took it in the backyard. I am holding the baby. Megan is beside me with a smudge of apple pie on her cheek that nobody spotted until hours later. We look tired. Not posed. Not polished. Just right. On the back of the frame, Late one night while Megan slept upstairs, I took a pen and scratched in a single line. The day everything began for real this time. Not the day Megan moved in. Not the marriage license we signed quietly without telling anyone. Not even the birth. I meant that quiet afternoon 2 weeks after the baby arrived, when I looked at the chaos and realized I was not performing anymore. I was not bracing for someone to leave. I was not trying to decide which version of myself would be easier to love. I was simply here. Present. Needed. Home. There is no trace of Linda in the house now. Not in the drawers. Not in the photos. Not in our stories. The chipped mug is gone. The note on the refrigerator is finally peeled off and tossed with old receipts. Her name has not been spoken in months. Not because we are angry, but because it does not belong in the sentence we are living. It is not erasure. It is evolution. The quiet that grows over time. The way ivy softens an old scar on a brick wall. Megan hums lullabies now, mostly off-key. The baby does not mind. I take long walks in the morning again, pushing the stroller down cracked sidewalks while neighbors wave and call out. She looks just like her mama. I wave back, smile, and keep moving. Sometimes I catch my reflection in a shop window. A man in his 60s with silver hair and tired eyes. But he is not hollow. He is not waiting for an apology. He is not holding space for someone who did not value it. He is full. One morning, while changing a diaper that could have qualified as a biohazard, I felt her tiny hand clamp around my finger, sure and deliberate, and something clicked. I always thought peace would arrive in stillness and solitude. For me, it turns out peace sounds like a baby hiccuping in her sleep. It smells like cinnamon from Megan's baking at 2 in the morning. It feels like knowing exactly where I belong without having to ask. We did not replace anyone. We just stopped reserving a seat for someone who chose to leave. And that photo on the mantle does not mark a milestone. It records a truth. Some stories do not begin until you finally stop rereading the wrong chapter.